You're listening to Rebel Hearts Rising, where we believe your darkest hour holds the key to awakening depth and profound inner wisdom. I'm Tam Burke, and I created this to remind you that when your heart wants to shut down, that's your call to rise, like a phoenix from the ashes. What makes this unique is that every episode is paired with a guided meditation to help awaken your intuition and heal on deeper layers. Together, we'll turn pain into power. What's up, y'all? Welcome to Rebel Hearts Rising. I am your host, Tam Burke. I am crazy excited for today's guest, Emily Rose. I met her in an online community, and every time we talk, we ask, are we the same person living on different timelines? We both come from single-raised immigrant moms. We have both experienced quantum leaping, what we thought our life was going to look like to what it is now, kind of the experience where you look around and realize, I couldn't have even dreamed this up if I want to. And she is someone who really embodies energetics in a way that I really value. Because as y'all know, the accountant meets the intuitive is spirituality to me is the best. I love having deep conversations. But if you don't have tangible, actionable, real ways to implement this stuff, it doesn't matter. Because the truth is that spirituality, if it lives in your head, is just a thought and a process. But it becomes embodied when it is something that we literally live in our everyday life. And so I'm really excited to introduce you guys to Emily, because Emily not only has a music career, which what does that even mean? How cool. Most people don't even know what a music career is. Like when she first told me, I was like, oh, what instrument do you play? And it's not what you think. So I'm excited for her to share that kind of behind the scenes with you. She has a coaching business. She's constantly reading something spiritual, up-leveling herself, teaching new ideas around wealth energetics. And it's not just this idea, it is something that's lived. She is a rebel heart through and through because she's decided how to live her life. I won't tell you guys one of her taglines, but she really allows you to create a reality that belongs to you. So without further ado, Emily is here to tell us her kind of origin story of who she is, how things started, and I'm really excited to have you here.
Yeah, thank you so much for the beautiful introduction. I so appreciate it. And I agree with you. I think that all the time. We're so similar. And there's just these little things that we say to each other where we literally are like, are we on the same timeline or a slightly different version and in just slightly different locations in terms of where we live? So I'm just really grateful to be on the podcast today and to just like get some time to connect with you too and also connect with your community. So, wow, where do I start? Do you ever feel like where do you even start with your origin story? Because there's so many layers to it. It's like, I think you did a really great job kind of teeing up the fact that, yes, I did come from a single immigrant mother. I came from a background where my mother raised me and my sister and did her best to put food on the table every single week. But she didn't teach us the mindset. She didn't teach us or have the tools to teach us really how to create your own reality, how to create your own damn universe, right? Out of what feels like thin air sometimes. And so for me, that's what I grew up seeing. I grew up seeing someone who was working her ass off to provide for her family, but it was living paycheck to paycheck. It was doing her best. It was having a beautiful, big heart and wanting to impact more people in her life, but not having the resources to do so, and not really knowing how to teach her kids about money and about energetics and about how to create your dream life, which is what I really sometimes pinch myself and look back and see is like, I really have created my own dream life. And it is because of the energetic foundations that I've taught myself around manifestation, around wealth energetics, that has enabled me to live this really unique life. I will say my life is very unique. Um, you kind of hit it on the nose where you're like, what does working in music even mean? I mean, my family still doesn't know what I do. They're like, what do you do? Do you just hang out with like artists all day long and get paid to travel? And I'm kind of like, well, yeah, that actually is part of it. It's not everything though. But for me, so I've gotten to a point in my life where, when like I said, I grew up very poor with an immigrant single mother and a sister. And, when I was in college, I was just bartending to get by, and I didn't know anything about manifestation. I didn't know anything about wealth energetics, and I didn't know anything about how to take the mentality that I was taught growing up, which is just you must work hard. You probably will never have enough wealth to really do what you really want to do in life, but you can work hard and be a good person. Two, you can actually create your own damn universe, and it can be super, super fucking unique. And it can be different than anyone else's universe that they're creating. So I picked up a book on manifestation in my early 20s. I'm sure a lot of people have heard of it. It's called The Secret. It's kind of the OG manifestation book that I think really brought these concepts to the mainstream. Whereas manifestation and these teachings have been around for centuries and are in so many ancient teachings. But The Secret really modernized it, and it really brought it to a new audience. So I picked up that book. And from that time on, let's see, I was in my early 20s. I think I was like 21. It completely changed my life. Like I started putting these principles, the laws of the universe, to practice. And I manifested my dream career in the music industry. I met the love of my life. I went on to make a lot of money from my sole career in the music industry at that time. And then evolved into an even bigger leadership position with this coaching business that I have, which really has just manifested within the last couple of years. And then also have evolved into owning a global real estate and short-term rental business with my husband, which allows us to really travel the world, live on the West Coast, live on the East Coast, spend time in the Smoky Mountains, spend time in our newest build is in an island in Belize, and really just create this like incredibly unique universe of mine across these three areas with music, coaching, and real estate. But the foundation of it all is energetics. The foundation of it all, I give 100% credit to manifestation and understanding what that means more than anything else in life. Like if you can nail the energetics and actually, to your point, if you can put a bit of a process, so you have some action, some tangible action steps that helps you formulate the energetics in your mind and actually understand what it means to kind of ground into them, you can create anything you want. So like I'm at this point where I'm like, wow, I've created my dream universe, created my own damn universe. What's next? I can't wait to see where I'm going to expand into next. And I don't even know what it could be, but I do know the principles that it takes to get you there energetically.
That's really powerful. I love that. And one of the things that I really like is create your own damn universe. Something that I've experienced in myself, and perhaps you have too, is, and maybe even the generation before us, the model was get married, have kids. And maybe even for women, it wasn't even about focusing on a job. And there's been this kind of linear one track of success. And as we start to define success, I'm bringing in a random thought here. Someone told me recently that one of the definitions of adult success is when your adult children want to spend time with you.
Yeah.
It's cool to think about. And so one of the things that I love about you is that you used, and I'm going to ask you kind of what you would say if someone walked in blank and they're like, what are you talking about manifestation? I would say, like, if you know that homework assignment, I don't know if you had this. If you were an alien and you had to tell an alien how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich without any of the details, how would you do it? And so in that same vein, but I feel like an alien would be like, I know about manifestation, dude.
Yeah,
But same kind of thing. So how would you describe manifestation?
In this very simplest terms, it is how you bring the vision that you have in your head to life. And the bridge of what that is between what's in your head and what is in your reality is actually just figuring out who you need to become to attain that. If you can understand the identity of who you need to become in order to manifest or in order to attain what you have in your mind, you will actually accomplish that. It is an identity practice. It's the practice of becoming the version of you who has the vision in your mind. So, for example, for me, if I would have looked back in my early 20s when I was bartending and I just started learning about manifestation, would I have been able to immediately say, okay, in 15 years, you're going to be a self-made multimillionaire with a real estate business, a coaching business, and a music career of your dreams? No. But what I did see was that first big next step, which at that time, the goal in my mind was like, oh my God, if I could get a career in the music industry and be an executive in the music industry, that's it. That's it. So it's learning who you need to become to achieve that next step, right? And then also being open to what unfolds after that.
That's
How
really
yeah,
beautiful.
how is that for a simple description?
Above A plus. It's amazing.
Good.
The thing that I really like that you said too is it's about the next step.
Yeah.
And I talk about this in intuition a lot too. People will come to me in sessions and be like, what are my next steps? And it's like, for what? And
Mm-hmm.
to where? And sometimes we're looking so far ahead that we forget actually the future starts with just a few tiny steps.
Yep.
And the most sustainable way for us to develop ourselves, grow ourselves, is to take these tiny steps that almost look like we're not making progress at all, except for
Yeah.
over time, it adds up to something that we wouldn't have been able to accomplish if we were looking at these huge next evolutions of self. So I think you
Mm-hmm.
break that down in a way that makes it easily tangible and really inspiring because it's not about the biggest next thing. It's about who do you need to become for every tiny step to keep moving forward.
100%. And that's the grounded part of it. And I think that you nailed it. It's like a lot of people say, okay, well, I want to be a millionaire. I want to be a multimillionaire. And that feels so unachievable to them. Right. And so, actually, when you're thinking about the world of energetics, how you should measure yourself is just what's the next step and who do I need to become to get to that next step? And then also, the level of measurement is the level of joy that you're feeling. That is actually what it is. So there's a concept in manifestation called the emotional frequency scale. And it's basically uh, the concept that you emit a frequency and a vibration, and whatever is a match for that frequency or vibration will then manifest into your physical. And what that frequency and vibration is compound of your beliefs and your emotions, right? And your thoughts and your words. But an easy way to actually feel your evolution is to look at the level of joy that you are feeling. So, for me, when I started coaching, and I'm sure you feel like this as well, the level of joy that I was feeling because I was able to have this impact and help other women and feel like, oh my gosh, I'm pursuing my purpose, even if maybe no money will come of this, but still the level of joy has taken me from an already pretty joyous person to up here, right? And that's actually the measurement of how close you are to your manifestation. It's you're measuring yourself on this emotional frequency scale. So for me, the emotion always comes first. So it's like, how do I get to this level of joy and ecstasy about this next step without questioning the how, the when, the why, the how much money? It's you're measuring yourself on this level of joy, basically, and this emotional scale. So it's really cool how like that's actually our guidance system is this emotional frequency scale.
It's very cool. And it reminds us, like, maybe joy is the most important thing.
Joy is at the top, joy, love, exactly. Yeah.
Mm. And those two also are frequencies that match, which is why they create more of each other.
Mhm.
Something that's really interesting that I wonder if you've thought about or heard. My partner and I were talking about we love Grizz, like uncomfortably. We love Grizz. I love Grizz. Ugh, yeah.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we were talking about is we are like, oh, not everybody loves Grizz. And maybe it is that our frequency and Grizz's frequency are very similar. And so when he
Mhm.
plays literal music that is everything is an actual frequency, but we can see a musical frequency or
Yeah.
aligning frequencies. And so we think about things like dead shows and what a cult
Yeah.
following that has.
Yep.
Actually, maybe, oh, I'm getting goosebumps. It's a frequency match between the people and the music. And so it's
Yep.
why
I
you
just got
find
goosebumps too. Yeah. I
totally,
yeah, that's
and you
it.
can go to shows and you meet people and you're like, are we best friends? And
Yeah.
it's because our frequencies are so similar.
Oh my God, I love you. See, once again, like we're on the same wavelength and timeline. But so, as you know, I'm a huge music fan. Obviously, I work in music. That is my number one passion. And the reason is it's a frequency shifter. And I actually wrote an essay about this in college that got me into my first internship. And I said, music is the number one modality in life, I believe, that actually enables you to shift your frequency into a different level of emotion, right? Like there's nothing like hearing that song and it brings you back to that moment in your life where you're feeling a certain emotion. And I'm still getting chills whenever I talk about music. Um, And you're right. I think that there is a frequency of the musician and the artist and the people that listen to that music, because not everyone has the same musical taste, and it is a frequency, it's a pattern. Um, and Oh my gosh, I was gonna go somewhere else with that, but yeah, you really nailed it. I actually think that so I like to say that songs are spells. That's one of my favorite things to say. I think we talked about this. We were texting, and you were saying words are spells, which I also believe. Words are spells, and I think even taking that up a level, songs are spells because the musical output is actually a pattern that emits a certain frequency. And if you're a match to that frequency and you combine that with the words and the lyrics in the songs that are actually spells, I truly believe music is a spell in that way and that it actually helps you manifest. So, like that, I have multiple manifestation playlists that actually will put me at a different level frequency that I listen to before I do anything where I really want to, like, rock it up to the next level.
That's amazing. I never thought about doing that, but it makes sense. It is a frequency changer. And so why
Yeah.
not use these things, these tools that we know to move us into orientations of self?
Yeah, 100%. And it can do the same. I mean, you can move into the frequency of joy. So I'm a huge Dave Matthews fan, for example. I'm a total Dave Matthews nerd. It's kind of like in the same realm as being like a Fish or a Deadhead type of like cult following. But he really grew up mostly in Washington State, which is where I'm from. So I've been going to his 3-day festivals at the Gorge every single year since college. So for, I don't know, 10, 15 years. It's a whole thing now. My family comes, my best friends come, their kids come. And you will never meet happier people than at this festival. It's insane. And he knows that. And I actually met him one time for my job. I was like about to do a meeting with him. And he was like, he didn't say frequency in so many words, but he was like, I know that my music communicates with the same type of people. And those people are so impacted by it that it's like, instead of growing into different audiences, he has this cult following of the same people that follow him to show to show to show and become friends. And I think it's actually like a frequency collective. I would totally agree with that. And so I am of the Dave Matthews Frequency Collective. Which is weird to say. You can edit this part out if you want, but that is like, I truly believe that, yeah, that music does connect you with people of the same frequency and artists of the same frequency. I would agree.
I think we need t-shirts made. Mine will say like Grace Frequency Collective.
Yeah. I know, my DMB Frequency Collective. Yes, you know what? I might make one for the festival this year. Yeah.
Experience happened last week that really just broke my heart. Something that I was just like, damn, disappointed. And I started to do some breath work, and my spirit came in and was like, dude, you don't need to breathe anymore. You need to dance. And so I was like, okay, got up middle breath work, turned off my breath work music, put on a song I could dance to. And while I was dancing, my intuition also said, you should do a dance challenge for the summer. And so every day I've committed to at least 2 songs dancing, and it's like the feminine energetics, the frequency, the healing, the getting out of your head and into your body and really moving in that kind of sensory orientation to self. I think today's a week. My mood is crazy elevated. I'm like, I should have started this a lifetime ago.
Yeah.
So being in the music industry, do you find that you dance a lot? Is that something that you'd want to do more of? Do you have a practice around it?
Yeah, great question. So I dance a lot, and my husband and I, we do kitchen dances all the time. Like, we will put on music and we will cook and we'll dance around. It'll be totally goofy. My whole family actually is very creative, and they're musicians and dancers. And so, like, you should see our Christmas. We do a week-long Christmas celebration. Every night turns into dancing and listening to music with the whole family, like of all ages. And people are just like being like totally goofy, just dancing in front of the fireplace, listening to random music. And that is what every family get together turns into. And it just does bring so much joy. And so much so, to your point and your question around, do I have a ritual around it? I don't necessarily right now. I kind of do it when I feel inspired, but I have been really drawn to somatics recently and wanting to learn more about somatics and incorporating that into my tool belt for my client. So that is something that I am potentially approaching over the next couple of years.
I realized while I was doing it, I was processing a lot of emotion. And I was
Yeah.
realizing I'm feeling things and I'm moving my body and I'm dancing in ways that are different than I normally dance. And I started to realize, oh my gosh, at its core, this is somatic work, right? Just
Mm-hmm.
moving my
Mm-hmm.
body as I'm feeling whatever's happening. Sometimes it's the beat of the music, sometimes it's the emotion that's being elicited. And
Yeah.
so it's like, it's really interesting that as we're moving through time and space, we're starting to have all of these words like energetics and somatics.
Yeah.
But really, at our base, like that's what we've been doing as humans for years. We're just figuring out how
Mhm.
these things are working.
Yeah, 100%. That's such a great point. It's like we're formalizing what we've always been doing, right? And we're assigning it words and we're assigning it containers, but we've actually been doing this as humans our entire life. And I think it's gotten a little bit lost in the modern world. So it is actually pretty cool that people are coming back to that as a form of healing, right? And as a form of like movement therapy, because 20 years ago, 30 years ago, like I said, our parents just didn't have the tools or the understanding of how something so simple as listening to music, something so simple as dancing and moving your body and breathing can actually revolutionize your life. And that is, another reason why I'm grateful to be born in the time I was born, because we actually are given these tools as like a remembrance. And our parents almost had to forget, right? Our parents in the last however many generations had to forget and had to like, make themselves small and not really go out there and dance and not go out there and be big and not go out there and talk about feelings and emotions and processing. And they didn't have these tools. And we do, just by a byproduct of when we were born.
I love that you're bringing this up because sometimes I get really overwhelmed at the state of the world. And I'm just like, I don't really
Yeah.
understand how we're doing some of the things that we're doing. But
Yeah.
the exact point that you just made is why I think everything will end up fine. Because as
Mhm.
generations are getting growing. You see, a lot of my friends in their 20s are using an app to scan all of their food and get all the nutrition information. And it's like graded based off of how healthy it is. Do you use one of these?
Really? No, but I want to. I've never heard of this.
Okay, also, I'll drop it in the show notes because I'm going to start using it. I like to be careful because I can get a little health nutty. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Balance is
Me too.
important. And then another friend in my 20s was like, do you know how bad sunscreen is for your skin? And I was
Mm.
like, no, and so there's this awareness, this level. I'm reading a book right now, and it was talking about as of 1990, no, I think it was 1987, more consciousness was put in each person. And then in
Mhm.
2000, there was a big marker of more consciousness being put in each person. And I always say, 'cause sometimes I get upset, like, well, I want more consciousness. And it's like, well, dancing, music, meditation, these breath work, these practices can increase our natural consciousness.
Yeah.
But as the younger generation has more and more, and they're starting to not wanting to fall into labels around identity or sexual orientation or
Mhm.
wanting more information about food, I think we really can understand that this is what's changing the world, is that
Yeah.
people who have a different viewpoint than us from our parents, same kind of measurement, this is what changes the world is just by seeing we can't continue to live the way that we're living. And
Mhm.
so I'm really excited to see as we continue to get older and new spirits come into the world, what will start to shift that right now, girl, I feel about energy hygiene.
Yeah.
Truly in 100
Yeah.
years from now, I think we're gonna look back and be like, ew, we did what?
100%. Yeah. Zen. Yeah, I agree. And I do feel that Gen Z, so that's the generation beneath me, because I am millennial. Are you millennial?
I don't understand that stuff.
I think
I'm like, "Oh, you just put
think
me
you're well,
somewhere."
maybe
Like,
you seem more Gen Z, but I think you might be millennial. But yeah, I do feel that they are a bit more advanced souls that were born on the earth. And they're much more, I look at them, I talked to my cousin who she's 18. I don't even think she's Gen Z. Anyway, whatever. She's a younger generation and she's so mature. And I'm thinking back to what I was like at 18 and 20. And I'm like, you are worlds ahead of where I was back then. I feel like a late bloomer compared to most of them. And so I really think that yeah, from I don't know when it was, 2000 on, the generations that are going to continue to be born are just going to be more and more conscious and more aware. And that's how the earth is going to shift. It's more and more conscious people on this planet, and they're being born earlier and earlier, right? Like they were born with consciousness rather than necessarily like having a spiritual awakening in your 20s or coming into consciousness really then. It's almost it feels like they from day one, they see the earth in the way that for me at least, I'll speak just for myself, it took me 20 plus years to start seeing it that way.
I love that you said this because I'm going to bring us back full circle. I just love talking with you. I feel like we could talk
I know.
about so many things, but
Yeah.
it sounds like when you were 21 and you started bartending or you were bartending and you found the secret, this was a spiritual awakening for you.
Yeah, it really was. It was because so another part of my past is I was raised very religious, very Christian, assemblies of God. And I really ran from that when I was 18. And I didn't want to have anything to do with organized religion. I did not, I almost went like straight to atheism, moved up to a kind of hippie town for college and had a bit of an identity crisis because what do I believe? I've been taught this one thing my entire life and I don't believe that anymore. Right. And so it actually kind of came full circle when I started learning about spirituality. And I also did a deep dive of other religions and realized actually what everyone is saying is very similar, but it's just with slightly different names and slightly different perspectives. So I started to understand what I core believe about the universe and about consciousness and about evolution and how we are as humans. Um, from actually taking a step back and saying, I'm going to observe and learn about all of these religions. I'm going to learn about spirituality. And I'm going to actually realize there's such a common thread under all of them that, like, this is what I believe without having to put a name on it, you know?
Yeah. I think it's really potent when you have a specific religious background to kind of, okay, do you know how I just thought about this? It's like if you have a type and you only ever date your type,
Yeah.
and it's like that might be great and you might end up with your type. But actually, don't you learn a lot about yourself and the world by dating people that aren't your type? And
Yes.
also by
Hmm.
your type, I'm talking about your religious type and like
Yeah.
broadening your horizons around just what exists and how other practices are working and how other people experience themselves too.
Hmm. 100%. It's a really good correlation. And I think that people get so like in their own echo chambers, even when it comes to dating too. I will even say there's a spirituality echo chamber. Like, and you know, what I really try to do, especially growing up with someone or growing up as someone who was in a very religious echo chamber, so to speak, and then going into spirituality and getting really deep in that. And then recently having the realization, wait, there's just another spirituality echo chamber too, right? And so always being open minded and saying there could be other possibilities. And I'm going to say open minded because if I'm just saying, nope, this is the one exact thing that I know and I believe 100% to be accurate and nothing else is true, I'm actually just repeating the pattern that I was taught when I was younger, right? So that's something for people in the spiritual community to be aware of too is like, we're in an echo chamber too. And the most important thing we can do is stay open minded. And the most important thing we can do is learn all perspectives and understand where people are coming from and understand at the base of it all, like none of us are really that different, right?
Think it's powerful to surround yourself with people who aren't exactly like you. I
Yeah.
mean, don't get me wrong. You and I get together and we're spiritual girlies who believe
Yeah.
in energetics and we would never shut up if we could,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And yeah, that continues to feed the same kind of thought pattern and loop and it can affirm your beliefs, which, sometimes I think about this a lot. I'm constantly blown away after I do intuitive sessions. I'm like, how did that
Mhm.
just happen? That's crazy.
Yeah.
And I'm doing this and witnessing this and it still blows my mind. And I think a lot of that is conditioning. We've been
Yeah.
taught this doesn't exist and it's not real. And so in some cases when you're firming up your own beliefs, I think an echo chamber can be really helpful.
Yeah. Yeah.
But once your beliefs are pretty firm,
Yeah.
then it starts to become problematic because it only continues that cycle.
Yeah.
And I
S-
also
Yeah.
find a lot of us really exist in novelty or like we really feel alive in novelty. And so even inviting novelty in our own thought experiments around what we believe to be true is something that just invites more depth in us as a person.
Mm-hmm. 100%. Oh, I love how you said that. It's like finding novelty in what we believe to be true and finding novelty in life in general is actually what does create that depth and that layer. And you can normalize your life pretty easily. And then you start to forget the novelty of it all, right? Um, and I think within the spiritual community, at first, when you're like firming up your beliefs, right? And you're learning about energetics, like it seems like such a novelty, like you said, and it should, right? Because it does give you the ability to really understand how you feel and you think and whatnot. But then you want to continue to think things are a novelty in your life. So, like the idea of thought exploration is something that I love, my husband and I love. We will always do thought experiments together of like, what if this crazy thing that we just learned on Gaia TV is actually real? And like, what if? And then we go down these like thought experiment loops where we just dive into that and we have so much fun. And I think the important thing to remember is like, yeah, that concept of that gets to be a novelty. Learning about like new perspectives gets to be kind of a novelty. And how do you have fun with it and be open minded and explore, but always with a perspective of, who knows? Who knows, right? Like, because you need to keep that open mind. Um, so yeah, I love how you put that.
We could talk all day. And
We literally could.
I'm excited to share this with you. Emily and I are both AI girlies. We really love it, find it to be super beneficial. And recently, Matt and I were talking, and we're like, what is intuition? And we're like, what if intuition is actually like when we have AI access, like our brain gets to access everything that exists? Because that's what it feels like. It feels like
Yeah.
when I'm using my intuition, I'm just putting in an inquiry and getting answers back that I shouldn't necessarily have access to.
Yeah.
And then he was like, well, that would make sense if we're in a simulation, which I
Yeah.
don't know if I believe that back and forth, It's
Yeah.
yeah.
No, I
So it's
totally,
like,
we could go off on this for hours too.
okay, so I just wanted to bring that in because I felt like you would really enjoy that. And
Yeah.
maybe those of you who are listening will as well. Like, I think it's important just to tickle your brain because for me, one of the biggest things that thought experiments do is life is not that serious.
Yeah. Totally.
Maybe it's a simulation. Maybe we're on a big blue ball hurling through space. Maybe the
Yeah.
earth is flat. And just like all of these insane things. And if any of these we can't even talk about aliens because I feel like we'd go on for 8 days,
But yeah, well, that's going to be a whole nother podcast.
right? Like what's going on? And so when we introduce these ideas, these possibilities of what if, it's like, dog, whatever is happening in your daily reality, just remember it's not that big of a deal. And it could not
Yeah.
be as you perceive it.
Yeah. 100%. I love that you brought in simulation theory. I'm a huge simulation theory geek. And again, I don't know. We're never going to know. Right. But I've actually been talking about manifestation and mixing it with simulation theory a lot recently. And the idea is that even if we're not in a simulation, the truth of manifestation energetics is that the universe is basically copying your code, right? Your code to the universe is an algorithm, just like Instagram is an algorithm or TikTok. The universe is reading your code, which is your identity, and then it's copying your code and spitting out in the physical form what's in your code. And so there's kind of like this interesting new perspective of simulation theory slash manifestation. And the way that you actually change your source code is by realizing you are the source code, and your source code is actually your identity and your beliefs and your thoughts and your words. So when you start to actually change your identity and you start to actually change your thoughts and your beliefs and your words, you're actually changing your source code. Therefore, the universe then is copying and spitting out a different PDF of your universe and changing your simulation. Now, once again, I'm not going to say simulation theory is definitely real, but it's an interesting thought experiment when you think it, or when you relate it back to how energetics and manifestation actually works. Like it would make sense.
I'm also just a big fan of metaphors. And so maybe manifestation doesn't make sense to you. And I'm not even someone who understands tech and code. But when you talk about it that way, it starts to be like, oh,
Yeah.
it's the same thing we were talking about with music and frequency. Frequencies always align to the highest frequency around it, right? And so
Yeah.
it's like bringing us back to we're seeing the same kind of patterns. And so maybe we are not in simulation. Maybe we are. But even if we're not, we know that to be true in code. So why wouldn't that continue over into life as well? And
Yeah.
so whether it's true or not, it just helps us bridge an idea of how we can get from one point to another.
100%. Yeah, exactly. Like, I think if you just look at it that simply, it is helping us bridge the idea. It's like you can look at it similar to AI if you want to. It's like AI is code based, but you start inputting information into AI, and the more and more the code is improved and the more it learns, the more what it spits out is going to be more nuanced, more detailed, more next level. It's like the same as you. Anyway, I could get real nerdy and cody here, but I definitely love the whole concept of like bridging the simulation theory with manifestation. And just for explaining it via metaphor, because I think it clicks for a lot of people when they hear it like that.
Okay, so with that in mind, what is something that you did to change your code when you
Mm,
first started to recognize, okay, I grew up not the way that I wanted to financially.
yep.
Something isn't working. I want something
Mhm.
different. The secret maybe is something that started to activate dormant code in your body.
Yep.
But what is another next step that you might recommend? Because on Rebel Hearts Rising, a lot of what we talk about is that sometimes the inner work sucks if we're just being honest, right? Like it's not always a fun party. And it
Yeah.
takes courage and sometimes inner discipline or devotion to something greater than yourself to really kind of keep the energy moving. So, what might you recommend to the audience, or what do you tell your clients around how you get kind of unstuck from recognizing, okay, there's something that I want to change, there's something that I want to be different, and starting to move the energy into where you want it to go?
Yeah. I also love that you said unstuck because that is the name of my signature manifestation coaching program, Unstuck and Unstoppable. So I love talking about these things. But, I guess so from that perspective, I'll skip over the whole part about you have to be grateful for everything in your life and write down 20 things you're grateful for every day. I did do that, but I do think that that's pretty like simple teachings that a lot of people realize. So the next level of that is when you really are doing the work to become the identity of this next version of yourself that is going to attain that next step, you do have to understand what you believe about yourself and what that version of you believes about herself as well. So I have a pretty detailed exercise, and it's a deep, deep, deep dive, like 2 months of journaling prompts where you're really doing a lot of shadow work. And what it starts with is saying, okay, if I want to be, for instance, an entrepreneur and I want to be bringing in 6 figures a year, so who do I need to be in order to have that as a goal, right? Or in order to be that person, have this be the next iteration in my life. And so you start thinking at a subconscious level first, well, what do I have to believe about myself? I have to believe about myself that I can pivot from a 9 to 5 to an entrepreneur, right? And if you feel something inside of you when you say that out loud, that's like, no, you can't. No, you can't do that. You really have to start exploring what those beliefs are that aren't in congruence with that belief that you must subconsciously have in order to become this person, right? So it really starts with a lot of belief work and a lot of really asking yourself the deep questions and noticing where there is incongruence in your answers. Um, then you take it up another step. So it's kind of like a pyramid, right? Where the subconscious beliefs are first. You have to understand, you have to get your beliefs to match that of the next version of you, the entrepreneur version of you, right? What does this entrepreneur bringing in 6 figures a month actually believe about herself? Where are your beliefs right now not matching up? And how do you clear those, right? And then the next step is you start to look at the habits, right? And so you're like, okay, if I want to make 6 figures a year as an entrepreneur, what are like the habits and the daily routines and the micro decisions that that version of me is making every single day to get me there? So maybe it's like, okay, well, actually, that version of me is someone who's very health focused. Right now, I'm not. But in order to be this next version of me that's going to be like peak Emily, I need to be exercising every day. I need to be paying attention to what I put in my body because I know that the output of that is actually going to have an effect on my success in my career and my entrepreneurship and my business. And I also know that she's going to have to start getting used to showing up online. She's going to have to learn how to create reels, even if she's someone that doesn't like to show her face online. And there's a lot of visibility fears to move through. It's like, what are the tangible habits you need to put into practice to become that next version of yourself? And what are those micro decisions every day? So every time that you make a different decision, than you would normally make. So you start thinking every day, I'm going to start making decisions from this future state of mine. But I'm bringing those decisions into the now. So as someone who maybe um, is like in that in between where they're working towards entrepreneurship, for example, and they need to learn how to adjust those micro decisions throughout the day, it's actually learning to break the habit of the decisions that you normally make. So maybe as someone who just has a 9 to 5, you don't really need to get up early because why would you? You just start at 9 anyway. So you're going to like stay up late till midnight and then you're going to get up at 8 a.m. and then get ready for an hour. Okay. But if you want to become an entrepreneur, you realize you're going to have to become a morning person, right? You're going to have to put some hours of work in before you start work. And so then when you're tempted to watch that last like Love is Blind episode or whatever you're watching, right? And stay up till midnight, that micro decision of you saying, you know what? I'm actually turning this off. I'm going up to bed because the version of me who's an entrepreneur, she prioritizes other things in the morning. She wakes up early, even though I don't feel like it. I never had to. And every micro decision that you make like that throughout your day actually compounds and affects your identity and it gets you closer and closer to that person. Or like alcohol is probably a good example too for a lot of people. It's like when you actually tell yourself at the end of your day, if you're working towards peak Emily, instead of like settling down with a glass of wine at the evening, I'm consciously making the decision to shift it to like a kin or a non-alcoholic beverage because I know if it was just my 9 to 5, I could do that in my sleep and fine, glass of wine in the evenings. At peak Emily needs to be on her game in the morning. So she's going to consciously make that decision to have a different kind of drinking ritual from alcohol to tea, from alcohol to non-alcoholic adaptogenic mushroom beverages, which I love. And that's going to compound over time. And that's going to help you reach that next level of identity. So the decisions then compound as well. And I'll stop there because I've been talking for a bit.
That was incredible.
How was that?
Like the School of Emily, sign us all up. Damn, that was great. And I even got emotional while you were speaking because again, it comes back to it's about small decisions. Like it's the micro choices. It's enough awareness to make a different decision than the one you've been making.
100%. It is those micro decisions. It's never going to be the massive decisions because micro decisions get you to the massive decisions, right? And it's actually the micro decisions that make up your identity on a day-to-day basis, as we know. And it's not, people think of quantum leap as like boom overnight. That's not how it works. It's actually compounding these micro decisions until you've had so many micro decisions that all of a sudden the big decision and the big leap happens. But you can't get there without the micro tweaks every single day and the micro decisions, the micro identity shifts throughout your day. It's even like starting to understand if you write down. So one big practice that's been really beneficial to me is like I'll write down all of the beliefs that must be true that this next version of me believes about myself in order to become that person. And when I catch myself with a belief that is not aligned with one of those beliefs throughout the day, that's where I'll know that's a belief to focus in on and start to shift at a micro level every day. So like, again, as an online coach, one big thing for me to overcome was visibility fears of showing up online. And I was so scared to show my spiritual side at first online, where I would be like, you and me, we're woo-woo girls. Like we talk about simulation theory, like you can't have these conversations with the normies all the time. But I was very afraid to show that side of me online. And it took like me realizing when I first started that when I would start to share about these things and then I'd be like, maybe I'm just going to save that as a draft and I'm not going to post it. I would tell myself no, because this next version of you, she's posting that. And she doesn't care if her family see. She doesn't care if her friends see. The people who are meant to be in her life and on her frequency are going to stick with her. And it's like those micro shifts that have allowed me to work through the like visibility and identity level fears that I needed to go through to reach the level that I'm at now within coaching. But that wouldn't have happened immediately without going through those micro shifts and decisions every day at first.
Something that you spoke about that I think a lot of people fear, either consciously or unconsciously, is that if we change and we grow, we're going to lose people in our lives. Have you experienced that?
I've actually been really blessed to not have that happen so much. Here and there, but my best friends that are the core, like the girls that are coming over literally today to do like wedding dress shopping for one of my girls that's getting married. We've been with each other through multiple evolutions of ourselves since we were 18. And I'm so like blessed that they have come along on the ride with me. And I consciously chose people from a young age that would be that level of like closeness with me, to where almost actually sisters, but truly see me at my core. So like if I tell them, I believe aliens are real or whatnot, like they wouldn't blink their eyes, and they've come along with me. Now, have I lost people that maybe aren't as important in my life? Yeah, but I would say there were people that I kind of intuitively knew from the get-go. These are probably not people that are meant to stay with me forever, right? Because not everyone is meant to. You go through seasons. Not everyone is meant to be in your life forever. But there are a few that are. So I've been pretty blessed to like zone in and narrow in on who those few are from an early age, and it's kind of proven to be pretty accurate.
I think that's really important for people who listen to Rebel Hearts Rising to hear, because you had a fear as well that you would lose people. I've definitely had a fear, and I've lost people.
Yeah.
And it's a remembrance that actually evolution is something that we should encourage in everybody.
Mhm.
Contradicting our own previous opinions is a sign of spiritual growth. And
Yeah.
so meeting people, being in relationship with people where we allow them to have their own evolution, we're creating our own evolution, and remembering that the people who don't stick with us through our evolutions, it's not meant to be a partnership that's long
Yep.
term. And so, I mean, we've talked about frequency this whole time. When we find people who move within our frequencies, I also think that they're within the same kind of level.
Yeah.
Level might not be the right word, but like the same kind of mix of frequency.
Yeah.
And so then that way, the frequency, I'm going to talk about Grizz again. Grizz, if you're listening.
Send the spirits.
um, One of the things that I love about him so much is that his music spans a lot of different expressions. And so sometimes there's like
Mhm.
hard, grimy EDM, and
Yep.
sometimes it's like very soft and playful. And we as people are like that too. We have different expressions of self. And sometimes we only like artists when they're playing one type of music, but most of us really appreciate the range that artists have. And so why wouldn't our people appreciate that about us?
Exactly. Percent. And the people that are meant to stay in your life will appreciate all of you and all those expressions of you. But guess what? Not everyone is meant to be in your life forever, and not everyone is meant to see the full spectrum of Tam, right? And I think it's part of evolving to learn that there is also people that are here to give us soul lessons and then move on, right? That's a big part of evolution of like consciousness and of evolution of being a human is people will come into your life for seasons, and you're teaching each other a lesson, and then you're moving on like actors in a play, right? And it's being okay with that. Like that's just what life is. And then there are going to be some people that I believe are in your soul family, so to speak, and they're going to stick with you to the end, but it's not going to be everyone, and that is totally okay. And like it's on you to also energetically not force people to like stick with you if you've realized that that season has passed and it's time for you to go on your own ways, but you have evolved just from knowing them. Whether it's a hard lesson or a beneficial. I mean, it's all beneficial lesson, but whether it was a hard, challenging relationship or whether it was a beautiful relationship that had to move on, it's still all for your own evolution and your own soul's growth.
Love that. I love, first of all, we've talked a lot and I've learned so much in this conversation. Like,
Yeah, me
y'all,
too.
I highly recommend that you become a part of Emily's World. You have a free Telegram group, right? Do you want
I
to talk about
do.
how people can find you, kind of what your offerings are? You have an amazing membership right now, too. You
Yeah.
want to talk about some of those things where people can find you if they want more Emily?
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, my Instagram is the Bold Bougie Hippie, which is my overarching brand across coaching, real estate, music. So you can find me there on Instagram. And then I do have a free Telegram group called Heart Led Millionaires, and I really give a behind the scenes look into wealth energetics, into manifestation, into heart led leadership. That's a big topic of mine as well. And I also do work with clients that are really multi-passionate. So we dive into multi-passionate branding in that free Telegram group as well. I'm also launching a free masterclass called Fuck the Timeline, Get Rich Now. So if you want to know how to fuck the timeline, get rich now, join that masterclass. And then the other piece that I would highlight here is my membership, which is Bold, Bougie, and Manifested. And that really is a membership designed for the heart-led leader that wants to create their own damn universe. So we dive into everything from strategy behind Instagram growth. So I have a lot of coaches in the membership that are really craving a tangible strategy to grow on Instagram, but also the energetics behind it to move through visibility fears, for instance. So we dive into manifestation, into Instagram growth, into human design, which we haven't even touched it on yet in this podcast, but another big area of focus for me. And really just how to run your business as, fully expressed as you can in every area and bringing all of you forward. And for a lot of my clients, that means all of their passions and figuring out how to bring this all into one holistic brand with wealth energetics at its core.
That's really cool. I love following Emily. I learn a lot about energetics. I consider myself an energetics queen, and there's still always more to learn. Like the universe is vast and wide. And something that I'm going to leave you guys with as a rebel-hearted community is like, y'all, it is time for us to create our own damn universes, right? Like,
Right.
really rising up against whatever we're going and growing through and taking that. It's all energy, right? And so when we alchemize one thing into another, we get to decide what is it that we're moving through now and how do we want to alchemize that into creating our own damn universe. So thank you for being here. This is so much fun to talk with you. And always, guys, like and subscribe and send us DMs. We love to hear about how this conversation landed or any questions that you have. Connecting is one of my favorite things to do in this community. So thanks, y'all.
Thanks, Tam.
You're listening to Rebel Hearts Rising, where we believe your darkest hour holds the key to awakening depth and profound inner wisdom. I'm Tam Burke, and I created this to remind you that when your heart wants to shut down, that's your call to rise, like a phoenix from the ashes. What makes this unique is that every episode is paired with a guided meditation to help awaken your intuition and heal on deeper layers. Together, we'll turn pain into power.